All right, here's the analysis video that you were promised. On the whole, the Senate and House results are just a bit on the low side of what Democrats ambitiously set out to gain, but they're only low compared to that ambition. It was a major national gain which poached more than 25 Washington offices from Republicans and gave them to Democrats. Especially decisive since this compounded the big wins from 2006. It was a partisan election result this year, not a bipartisan one, and the statement that carries is that Americans like what Democrats were selling, and while they also like to see cooperation, the top priority is going to be enacting those partisan ideas that they voted for and not pleasing the Republican minority beyond the 2 or 3 senators it will take to prevent filibusters. Several states shifted to the left as well on Tuesday, with issues ranging from marijuana laws in Massachusetts and Michigan to doctor-assisted suicide in Washington state to animal welfare in California. By the way, on animal welfare, thank you to the Humane Society. I am so glad to be a member of this important and effective organization. We also had wins on abortion, not only in Colorado and California, but South Dakota, affirming that we remain a majority pro-choice country, even in Big Sky country. The big setback was gay marriage in 3 states, and in California it will probably go back to the courts for more battles on whether this is a fundamental civil right or not, but we did lose this one. The silver lining, though, is that young voters were overwhelmingly for gay marriage, while old voters were overwhelmingly against it, which suggests that reform is slowly on its way, and that attrition alone will put us in the majority in a decade or so. Now that the results are in, there are some important lessons to glean from them. First thing to know is that the polls were solid. See, I got bashed on both sides this year for trusting polls, but the fact is, this is a science, and these professionals have gotten good at taking information from 600 people, weighing their demographics against the public, and extrapolating out how everybody feels. And polling is especially good when you have, like this year, a dozen companies releasing updates constantly, because then you get a spectrum of data from which a consensus emerges. Now, the most notable exception in all of this polling being pretty much right is Alaska, which had a volatile year and ended up putting in way more votes for their Republican House and Senate candidates than was expected. Why? Well, you should know both of these guys are demonstrably corrupt, first of all, which complements the ethical lapses of their current and previous governor. So Alaskans have shown us that ethics is really not a high priority for them. They're not the only state to put party politics ahead of good government. New Jersey and Louisiana have weak track records as well, so it's not Arctic fever. But as far as the predictions being wrong in Alaska, I think emotional factors like shame, like denial, led some Alaskans to say that they would do one thing, but ultimately come around and vote for the candidate that they were used to voting for. And that is our loss. I also have been considering my performance here on YouTube. This is somewhat new to me. I've done political writing before, but never tried punditry before YouTube, and I've learned that I'm good at this, and I'm really glad to have brought you quality information over the last year, often before it was conventional wisdom. If I may, just for a second, I said back in January that America was ready for a black president, and when everybody was worried about superdelegates, I said, chill out, they would eventually go with the pledged delegates, which they did. I said that Hillary would drop out at the end of the primaries, which she did, that the nomination would not be contested, and that her voters would eventually join Obama. I speculated that Obama would not choose Hillary as vice president, and that if he didn't choose a woman, John McCain probably would. I predicted that McCain would be easier for Obama to beat than Hillary was, and I think that was true, and 3 weeks in advance, I called the election for Obama. That's a better track record than a lot of famous pundits. Unfortunately, the smartest people don't have the highest profiles on television because the showbiz news industry doesn't reward people for being right. It's not a meritocracy. Bill Kristol makes a huge income being wrong. I must say, though, that a big portion of my success is thanks to the excellent blogs Open Left, My DD, Daily Kos, and 538. I'll give you some links over here. If you like watching me, you should think about reading them too. Now, what can we look forward to in the immediate future? Well, honeymoons and hibernation, really. The country is sick of politics, and we're going to lay off for a while. This is great for President Bush because in his last days, when people aren't paying close attention, Bush will announce his pardons, which I'm sorry to say will probably include the telecom companies that he used to conduct illegal spying on American citizens. Meanwhile, Obama will announce his cabinet. Bill Richardson has a good shot at Secretary of State, which would be great. Obama's already offered his chief of staff position to the iron-fisted Congressman Rahm Emanuel, which is a powerful choice, but may increase indiscipline in the already undisciplined House of Representatives, which could get tricky. Presidents are typically given 100 days to accomplish something, which means that he has until the end of April before the criticism really picks up steam. If President Obama is determined to keep his promises, that should be more than enough time to get the ball rolling on troop withdrawal and hopefully 2 out of 3 issues of healthcare, tax reform, and energy reform. New presidents start with high approval ratings that don't necessarily match that level later on, so right away is really the best time to act. It's the best time to set a tone. I will still talk politics on this channel, of course, but in the near term you will also see other stuff like documentary and entertainment pieces that have been piling up in my brain during all of this melee. But thanks for watching. It's been a great year, and please don't stop now, because there's a lot more to come.